Cars roared past the intersection like they were fleeing a disaster, their horns blaring at the elderly man stuck halfway across the street. "Move it, old-timer!" someone shouted from a pickup window. Another driver slammed both palms against his horn, leaning out to yell, "You're gonna cause an accident! Get off the road!" The old man flinched with every blast of noise, gripping his cane so tightly his knuckles went white. His legs trembled, not from age alone but from fear. The crosswalk light had turned red while he was still shuffling across, and now the traffic surged around him like he was nothing more than an inconvenience. A delivery van swerved too close. The old man stumbled. A bag of groceries slipped from his hand and spilled across the asphalt, apples rolling like scattered marbles. People watched. No one helped. Then one driver did worse. A sleek black sedan inched forward, bumping the man's leg. Not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to send a message. "What are you doing?" the driver barked through his open window. "You trying to die today? Move already!" The old man's voice quivered, thin and helpless. I'm trying, please." But his legs wouldn't obey. His body had frozen in place, a mixture of terror and humiliation rooting him to the street. He looked like a man defeated by nothing more than the world's cruelty. Then, over the chaos came a shout, sharp and commanding. "Hey, step away from him, now!" Traffic halted, not because of the light, but because the voice carried authority that made motorists straighten in their seats. Officer Dana Reyes sprinted into the crosswalk, hand raised, uniform catching the sunlight. She was small but solid, with the kind of presence that made grown men twice her size back down without argument. She didn't hesitate. She positioned herself between the elderly man and the black sedan, her jaw clenched. "You," she said to the driver, voice low and dangerous, "touch him again, even by an inch, and your license won't survive the day." The man opened his mouth to snap back, then saw her badge and the look in her eyes. He swallowed. "Fine, whatever. Just get him off the road." Jenna stepped closer to his window. "You could have killed him." "Lady, I didn't—" "You could have killed him. That's all that matters." The man shrank back, muttering curses, as he rolled his window up and sped away. Jenna didn't waste another second on him. She turned to the elderly man, her expression immediately softening. "Sir, can you hear me?" He nodded, eyes wide and glassy behind his thick lenses. I'm sorry." "For what?" she asked gently. "For causing trouble?" Her heart cracked a little at that. "You didn't cause anything. You were crossing the street. That's allowed. What happened here is on them, not you." He blinked rapidly, fighting tears. I dropped my groceries. I've got them." Jenna knelt in the street, right there, in uniform, and gathered every apple, every can, every fallen item, placing them carefully into his torn bag. Then she offered her arm. "Let's walk together." The old man hesitated only a moment before taking her elbow. His hand shook as if he were afraid he might break her, but Jenna kept her grip firm and reassuring. Cars waited. Drivers watched in silence. Some lowered their eyes, ashamed. Jenna guided the old man across the rest of the road, blocking traffic with her body if she had to. When they reached the sidewalk, she helped him sit on a nearby bench beneath a bus shelter. His breathing was shallow, his face pale. "Do you need medical help?" No, just a moment." She nodded, staying beside him. She wasn't going anywhere, not until he was steady again. After a long minute, he spoke. You saved me." Jenna shook her head. "I just did what anyone should have. He looked at her, eyes suddenly sharper than before, like he was seeing her not just as an officer, but as a human being. "No," he said quietly. "Not anyone. Only the right kind of person." Jenna smiled softly. "Well, then I'm glad I showed up." But then, the old man reached slowly into his coat pocket. His hand trembled as he pulled out something small, metallic, and heavy. Jenna's breath caught. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't dangerous.
It was a medal. Old, worn, military, with a name engraved on the back. The name made Jenna's blood run cold because she recognized it. Her father's. And the old man whispered, "You look just like him." For a long moment, Officer Jenna Rowe couldn't breathe. She stared at the medal cradled in the old man's palm, silver, worn down by time, its ribbon frayed at the edges. She knew this medal, knew the way the stripes crossed, knew the dull sheen, knew the exact feel of the medal because she had held its twin in her hands countless times as a child. It was her father's service medal, except this one carried his full name engraved across the back. Sergeant Michael Rowe, United States Marine Corps. Jenna's pulse spiked. Her throat tightened. Her voice came out barely audible. Where did you get that?" The old man's lips trembled, but his gaze remained strangely steady. "He gave it to me," he whispered. "A long time ago." Jenna shook her head slowly, disbelief tightening around her like a vice. "My father died when I was 11, in Afghanistan. He only had one medal like this. One. My mother kept it. She wore it on a chain every night until the day she passed." The old man's eyes softened with something that looked almost like grief. "I know," he murmured. "I was at her funeral." Jenna froze. Her memory played like a broken tape. Hazy snapshots of black dresses, flag-draped coffins, distant faces offering condolences she barely understood at the time. Faces she never saw again. "You were there?" she whispered. The old man nodded. But before she could process any of it, his hands suddenly clutched his chest, his breath hitched, his face tightened as pain rippled through him. "Sir," Jenna's voice shot up. "What's wrong? Do you take medication? Sir, look at me." He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to breathe through the wave of pain. I'm fine," he gasped. "Just give me a moment. It happens sometimes." "No," Jenna said firmly. "You nearly collapsed in the street. You are not fine." She reached for her radio, but his hand shot out and covered her wrist with surprising urgency. "Please," he rasped. "No ambulance." "Why not? You clearly need." "No hospital," he insisted, louder this time, his voice cracking with desperation. "Please, please, I can't be registered anywhere." Jenna's stomach dropped. Can't be registered? What did that even mean? Her training screamed at her to call for medical assistance. Her instincts whispered that something deeper was happening here. "Sir, I don't understand. Why can't you go to a hospital?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pressed his trembling hand against his coat, over his heart, like he was holding something together inside. When he spoke, his words were quiet, loaded with weight. "Because people are looking for me." Jenna blinked. "People? What people?" The old man swallowed hard, like each word scraped on the way up. "Dangerous people." Jenna's breath hitched. "Are you in trouble with the law?" "No," he whispered. "It's worse than that. Much worse." She crouched beside him, lowering herself to his eye level. "What's your name?" she asked softly. For a full 10 seconds, he didn't answer. He stared at the cars rolling past the intersection, at pedestrians hurrying by, unaware of the storm brewing on a simple bus stop bench. Then he exhaled shakily. "My name is Arthur Caldwell." Jenna blinked. The name hit her like a blow to the chest because she recognized it instantly. Everyone did. Arthur Caldwell was a famous name, but not for anything good. He was the whistleblower who vanished 15 years earlier, the man who exposed widespread corruption in a defense contracting company, the man whose testimony triggered a federal investigation and then disappeared before the trial. Some newspapers called him a hero. Others called him a traitor. Rumors swirled for years that he'd been murdered, relocated, or bribed into silence. But one thing was certain. Arthur Caldwell had been declared dead. A decade ago. Jenna's voice cracked. That can't be. Arthur Caldwell died in 2009. There was a memorial. There was... They lied, he whispered. They lied about everything. A chill crawled up Jenna's spine. Why would they fake your death? Arthur's hand tightened around the metal. Because I saw something, he whispered. Something I wasn't supposed to see. Something your father tried to protect me from. Jenna's breath caught in her throat. Your father? What do you mean? But Arthur's gaze shifted suddenly toward the street. His body tensed, every muscle stiffened. Jenna turned instinctively, following his line of sight. A black SUV had rolled to a slow crawl on the opposite side of the street, windows tinted pitch black, engine idling too quietly. It lingered instead of passing. The driver's silhouette wasn't visible, but Jenna felt eyes on them. Watching. Measuring. Arthur reached for her arm. Officer Rowe, we need to get up now. Jenna straightened immediately, her hand unconsciously drifting toward her holster. The SUV didn't move, didn't turn, didn't signal. It just sat there. Then, like a predator acknowledging its target, it crept forward again slowly, deliberately, before turning the corner and disappearing from view. Jenna exhaled a breath she didn't even realize she'd been holding. What was that? Arthur swallowed hard. That, he said shakily, is why I can't go to a hospital. That's who's looking for me. Jenna felt the ground tilt beneath her. But why me? Why were you out here alone? Why today? Arthur turned to her, eyes filled with something deeper than fear, something like apology. Because I didn't come to this intersection by accident. I came to find you. A cold shock ricocheted through Jenna's body. What? Arthur's voice trembled. Your father made me promise that if anything ever happened, if the truth ever came back to haunt me, I was supposed to find you. Jenna felt like the world stopped. My father sent me to you? Yes. But why? Why now? Because, Arthur whispered, clutching the metal, the people who thought I was dead just found out I'm alive, and they won't let the truth surface, not after all these years. Jenna's chest tightened. What truth? Arthur looked her straight in the eyes. The truth your father died to protect.
Jenna Rowe felt her pulse hammering in her ears. The noisy city street around them blurred into background static, the honking, the chatter, the occasional bark of a dog. None of it existed anymore. It was just her, and the old man who should have been dead 15 years ago, clutching her father's medal as if it were the last living piece of both their histories. She forced her breathing steady. Arthur, she said softly, trying to ground him and herself at the same time. I need you to tell me exactly what you mean. What truth did my father die to protect? Arthur's fingers tightened around the metal until his knuckles bleached white. He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted down the street as though expecting the black SUV to slither back around the corner. Finally, he spoke. It wasn't a random explosion, the one that killed your father. The official report lied. They had to lie, because if the truth had come out, half the people involved would be behind bars. Jenna stiffened, the old familiar ache striking deep in her chest. My father died, she said carefully, when the Humvee hit an IED. He shielded the other soldiers with his body. They gave him the Silver Star. I was at the ceremony. Yes, I know. I was there. From a distance. The idea sent a strange jolt through her. She tried to picture it. An unknown man lingering at the back of a military funeral, watching her grieving mother, hiding in the shadows. It felt eerie and invasive, but also oddly protective. You stood there and said nothing? She asked, her voice breaking despite the steel she tried to force into it. Arthur's fingers glistened, not with fear, but guilt. I wanted to speak to your mother. I tried twice, but I realized the moment I did, they would target her and you. I couldn't bring danger to your doorstep any more than I already had. Jenna took a slow breath. Start from the beginning, she said. Tell me everything. Arthur nodded, as if resigning himself to a weight that had been pressing on him for years. It started with contracts, defense contracts, overpriced equipment, falsified reports, faulty gear sent overseas. Your father, he discovered that some of the armor plating meant for his unit had been deliberately downgraded so the contractors could pocket the difference. Jenna felt her stomach twist. My father? How would he know that? He was the one testing it, Arthur replied. He reported the issue, but someone above him buried the complaint. That's when he came to me. I was working as an internal compliance investigator for the contractor at the time. You? Jenna blinked. But you were just a corporate guy. From the news stories, you didn't seem connected to the military side. That was intentional, Arthur murmured. They wanted someone who looked harmless, so no one would suspect I'd eventually blow the whistle. He shifted on the bench, wincing again at the lingering pain in his chest. Your father trusted me, Arthur continued. He showed me the paperwork, the falsified records. He even gave me access to full testing reports. It was all buried under layers of signatures from people who have spent years avoiding prison. Jenna felt a hardening sensation in her chest, a mixture of anger and disbelief. And then what happened? Arthur looked away. I told him it was dangerous to go deeper, but your father wasn't the kind of man who walked away from the truth. He was determined to protect his men. He didn't know how far the corruption went or how many lives were at stake. He exhaled shakily. Then one night he called me, said he'd found something even bigger, something that linked the faulty armor to a larger operation involving illegal weapons exports. He didn't want my help. He just wanted me to hide something for him. Jenna leaned closer. What did he want you to hide? Arthur reached slowly into the inside pocket of his coat. Jenna tensed, instinct, training, but he simply pulled out a small, weathered envelope. Its edges were soft, worn from years of being carried around. Her name was written on the front in handwriting she hadn't seen in over 20 years. Her father's handwriting. Jenna's breath vanished. Is that... Arthur nodded gently. He wrote this for you, the night before he died. Jenna's throat constricted painfully. The world swayed for a moment as tears burned behind her eyes. But why didn't I get it? She whispered, her voice breaking. Because he never delivered it to me, Arthur said quietly. He dropped it in my mailbox before he shipped out. I was supposed to give it to you once everything was safe, once the truth was exposed. But then the explosion happened. Jenna stared at the envelope as if it were a living thing, fragile, sacred,
electric with memory. She felt her hands tremble. "I can't," she whispered. "I don't know if I can open that." Arthur nodded solemnly. "You don't have to. Not yet. But you need to hear the rest." She swallowed hard, nodding. "Go on." Arthur's gaze darkened with old fear. "Your father didn't die from an IED. The explosion was real, yes, but it wasn't random. It wasn't insurgents. It wasn't bad luck." Jenna's heart slammed against her ribs. It was staged?" "What?" she breathed. "They tampered with the convoy's route, delayed the convoy's escort, and most importantly," Arthur paused, his voice cracking, "they ensured your father was in the lead vehicle." Jenna felt like the ground was collapsing beneath her. "No," she whispered. "No, my father wasn't murdered. He died a hero. Everyone said—" "Your father was a hero," Arthur said gently. "But yes, he was murdered because he got too close." Jenna covered her mouth with her hand, fighting the wave of grief threatening to tear out of her. Arthur continued, voice trembling. "I was supposed to testify about all this. I had the files your father gave me. But the moment the investigation started, I realized I was being followed. My house was broken into twice, my car tampered with. An agent connected to the case died suddenly. I knew I wouldn't survive long enough to stand in court. So you disappeared." "I had no choice. I destroyed my identification, escaped the country for a while, resurfaced only when I knew some people in the government had been replaced. But it didn't matter. They were always watching." Jenna shut her eyes. "And now they found you?" "Yes. And you came to me because your father wrote something in that letter. Something he said only you would understand. Something that proves everything." Jenna stared at the envelope again, her heart pounding, dread and longing warring inside her. She whispered, almost afraid of the answer, "And the people looking for you? What do they want?" Arthur met her eyes, his own full of quiet terror. "Officer Rowe, they don't want the truth to come out. They don't want anyone alive who knows what your father uncovered." Jenna's breath shook. "And now that they've seen you with me?" Arthur nodded grimly. "They won't be after just me anymore." He paused. "You're in danger now, Jenna."
Jenna stared at Arthur as the weight of his words sank deep into her bones. Danger. For him, for her, for the memory of her father that she had spent 2 decades trying to honor. She had thought the morning's chaos, rude teenagers, a careless driver, would be the worst part of her shift. Now she was sitting on a cold metal bench outside a bakery, holding a letter written by a man she'd buried when she was 16. And someone wanted her dead for knowing it existed. Jenna took a deep breath, steadying her voice. "Arthur," she said calmly but firmly, "you need to tell me exactly who these people are." His gaze darkened. "They work for a private intelligence contractor, former military, former security forces, people who were hired to handle inconvenient truths. They were paid to ensure your father's findings never surfaced." Jenna clenched her jaw. "And you think they saw you with me?" Arthur nodded. "I know they did. That SUV earlier? They don't patrol random streets. They were following me. And now—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Jenna's instincts activated, trained reflexes drilled through years of dangerous arrests, tense standoffs, and midnight calls. She scanned the street automatically. Cars rolled past, a couple walked a dog, a cyclist whizzed by. Everything looked normal. But Arthur's fear wasn't imagined. She'd seen it on countless victims, people who lived every moment afraid someone was watching. It wasn't the twitchy, unfocused paranoia of a man losing grip on reality. It was sharp, controlled. The fear of someone who survived something most people couldn't imagine. Arthur wasn't lying. She could feel truth radiating off him like heat. Jenna stood up. "Come on," she said. "We're going to the precinct." Arthur's reaction was immediate, violent. "No," he hissed, grabbing her wrist. You can't take me there. They have connections everywhere. They'll find me before we finish the intake paperwork. Jenna gently removed his hand. Arthur, the department can protect you. We have safe rooms, witness protocols. They have access to your precinct logs, your patrol routes, your case files. They will know your every move before you make it. Jenna froze. The certainty in his voice was chilling. How do you know that? She asked quietly. Arthur swallowed hard. Because the person who helped cover it up works in law enforcement. Jenna felt a cold, nauseating twist in her stomach. Someone in her own profession, possibly in her own district, was tied to this? Give me a name. Arthur opened his mouth, but then his eyes darted past her shoulder and widened with terror. Jenna didn't hesitate. She pivoted, hand going instinctively to the grip of her service weapon. A black sedan rolled slowly up the opposite lane. Not the same SUV as earlier, but tinted windows, no plates on the front, moving too deliberately for casual traffic. The engine hummed low, almost predatory. Jenna's voice lowered to a whisper. Is that them? Arthur didn't speak, didn't breathe, just nodded once. The sedan slowed even more. Jenna's pulse raced. She stepped subtly in front of Arthur, shielding him, her fingers brushing her holster. The car crawled along the curb. The rear window rolled down 2 inches, just enough for someone inside to see, or aim. Jenna's heart hammered. Her training screamed, don't escalate, don't draw unless necessary, keep civilians safe. But her instinct screamed something else. They're hunting him, and they're not afraid to hunt you too. The moment stretched. Cars behind the sedan honked angrily. The driver ignored them. He stared. She could feel it, even though she couldn't see his eyes. Then, with a screech of frustration from the drivers behind it, the sedan accelerated and merged back into traffic, disappearing around the corner like a shark diving back underwater. Arthur's knees buckled. He leaned heavily against the bench, shaking. They know I'm not alone, he whispered. That means they'll plan something bigger. Jenna exhaled slowly, the adrenaline burning through her limbs. Okay, she said, then we do this smart. Not at the precinct, not at your place, which I'm assuming is already compromised. Arthur nodded miserably. You're right. I've been followed for weeks. I move every 2 days. I sleep in different shelters or churches. I avoid cameras. I don't use a phone. Jenna studied him. His rumpled coat, the dirt on his shoes, the exhaustion etched into the lines of his face. He had been running for years, and now he'd stopped. For her. Because of her father. She took a long, steady breath. Arthur, I need to know what's in that letter. I need to understand what my father was trying to say. Arthur shook his head. Not here. Not in public. Then we go somewhere safe, she insisted. There is no safe place, not until the truth is out. Jenna felt a burning determination settle in her chest. Then we tell it. Arthur blinked at her. How? Jenna wasn't sure. She'd never unraveled a conspiracy before. She'd never challenged some hidden powerful entity. She was just a patrol officer, a woman who tried to do her job with integrity and heart because her father died wearing the same badge. But the moment that letter touched her hand, something shifted. Her father wasn't a tragic hero. He was a man murdered for standing up for what was right. And now, someone wanted to bury him again. No. No. She wouldn't let that happen. Arthur, she said, meeting his eyes, no matter who they are, no matter how powerful they think they are, we're going to expose them. I swear it. The old man stared at her for a long moment, and something in his expression softened, a mixture of relief and sorrow. You're just like him, he whispered. Jenna swallowed. Then let's start by getting off this street. We need to move, now. She turned, but Arthur hesitated. Jenna, there's one more thing I didn't tell you. She stopped. Arthur's voice dropped to a trembling rasp. The person inside that sedan? He swallowed hard. He's the same man who came to your father's base the night before the explosion. He warned your father to stay quiet. When he refused, he ordered the hit. A chill shredded down Jenna's spine. And you recognized him? She whispered. Arthur nodded. I never forget the face of a killer. Jenna stared in the direction the sedan had vanished, her heart pounding. "Who is he?" she asked, barely breathing. Arthur hesitated, only for a second. Then he said the name. A name Jenna knew. A name she had heard at police events. A name tied to influence, philanthropy, and iron-tight connections. A name that made her blood run cold. It was Deputy Commissioner Randall Shaw. The world tilted. Shaw. Her boss's boss, one of the most respected law enforcement figures in the entire state. A man who gave speeches about public trust and police accountability. A man she had once admired. "Are you sure?" Jenna whispered. Arthur's voice was deadened by certainty. "I would bet my life on it." Jenna felt her whole future shift. "My God," she breathed. Arthur took a trembling step back. "If he knows you talked to me, he will come after you. Shaw doesn't leave loose ends. He never has." Jenna's pulse hammered in her throat, and for the first time in her career, she realized she might be on the wrong side of a war she never knew existed.
Jenna didn't remember walking the first 3 blocks. Her legs moved on instinct. Military instinct, drilled from academy days and polished by patrol work. But her mind was somewhere else entirely, spinning, choking, trying to process the impossible. Deputy Commissioner Randall Shaw, her department's golden boy, her chief's closest ally, a man who had shaken her hand on her first day and said, "We need more officers like you." A man who her father had served under before he died. A man Arthur claimed ordered the hit on her father to bury evidence of corruption. The cold horror of it made her stomach twist. As they walked, Arthur stayed close, hunched like he was trying to make himself smaller. He wasn't a frail man, but fear aged him every second. His eyes darted at shadows, parked cars, even the windows of upper floors. Every reflection became a threat. Every pedestrian became a possible watcher. Jenna could feel his terror, thick as smog. "Arthur," she murmured, "we need to slow down. Breathe." He shook his head sharply. "We don't have time. They'll be tracking my movements, your movements. They might already know we spoke." Jenna pressed a hand lightly to his shoulder. "You're safe with me." He gave her a broken, painful smile. "No one has been safe around me in a very long time, Jenna." She didn't have time to respond, because her radio crackled loudly, sharply, urgently, making Arthur flinch. "Unit 312, respond." She froze. It was dispatch. "Unit 312, do you copy?" She hesitated, a second too long. Arthur grabbed her arm. "Don't answer. If Shaw has access—" But not answering raised even more suspicion. Jenna cursed under her breath, lifted the radio, and forced her voice steady. "Copy, dispatch. Go ahead." Static hissed. Then, "Officer Lee, you're requested at the precinct. Command wants to debrief all morning patrol officers. Priority, urgent." Her blood turned to ice. Command. Not the chief. Not her district captain. Command. That meant Shaw. Arthur was right. They knew she was out of routine. They knew she hadn't checked in. They knew she was with someone she wasn't supposed to be with. Her heart thudded violently. 10-4, she said, forcing casual professionalism. "I'm tied up on a civilian assist. I'll head in as soon as I clear." There was a long, unnatural pause. Dispatch came back softer, almost hesitant. "Be advised, Officer Lee, they want you now." Arthur's eyes widened. This is how it starts. This is the net tightening. Jenna ended the transmission before dispatch could push again. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, from anger. Her father died for telling the truth. And now someone was trying to silence her before she even understood what she had stumbled into? "Arthur," she said tightly, "we need to disappear for a while." He nodded, breath sharp. "I know somewhere. Not far, but we have to be careful." They cut through an alleyway behind an old laundromat and made their way toward the edge of downtown. People passed them, shoppers, delivery drivers, a mother pushing a stroller. But no one paid attention. Until Jenna noticed a man half a block behind them. Plain clothes, dark jacket, hands in pockets. Moving with the fluidity of someone trained to tail without being noticed. A professional. She slowed her steps. Arthur noticed her change in pace instantly. "What is it?" he whispered. "Behind us," she murmured softly, barely moving her lips. "Don't look. Dark jacket. Hasn't broken stride in 5 minutes." Arthur sucked in a breath. "Shaw's men," he rasped. Jenna guided them toward a coffee shop across the street. She kept her back straight, expression calm, pretending they were just two people out for a midday stroll. Once inside, they slipped out through the side door, down a small stairwell, and back into an alley behind the building. Only then did Jenna allow their pace to quicken. Arthur panted. How did you spot him?" "I've tailed suspects. You learn what predatory movement looks like. Normal people look around, they check their phones, they hesitate at corners. But trained watchers..." She paused. "They're too smooth." Arthur closed his eyes, grounding himself with a trembling breath. "Your father noticed things like that. It's why he died." Jenna swallowed hard, pushing down the rising tide of grief and fury. "Let's keep moving." They navigated through side streets, weaving through back alleys and abandoned lots, until they reached an old church at the edge of the district. The building leaned slightly, paint peeling, windows cracked. Arthur exhaled with relief. "This way." He led her through a rusted side door into the dim corridor of the basement. It was empty, silent, just a few rows of stacked metal chairs, dusty hymnals, and a radio older than both of them. "This is where I sleep when I can't risk the shelters," he muttered. "The pastor lets me hide here sometimes." Jenna inspected the basement quickly, habits etched from years of clearing rooms. 2 entrances, 1 window too small for a person to fit through, no cameras, no recent footprints except Arthur's. Safe, for the moment. Arthur sank onto one of the metal chairs, rubbing his face with both hands. "I can't run anymore. I'm too old, too tired." Jenna sat across from him. "You're not running now. You're helping me finish what my father started." Arthur lifted his head, eyes heavy with sorrow. "You could lose everything. Your career, your reputation, even your life." Jenna didn't blink. "So be it." Arthur looked at her long and hard. Then he reached slowly inside his coat. Jenna tensed, hand drifting toward her holster, but Arthur pulled out only a folded sheet of aging paper, the matching page to the one she already had. He unfolded it with trembling fingers. "This is why they killed him," Arthur whispered. It wasn't a letter. It was a report. A classified operations summary, her father's handwriting all over it, about an illicit surveillance program targeting civilian communities without warrants or oversight. Illegal taps, secret data collection. A covert program run under Shaw's supervision. Her chest tightened painfully. Her father had discovered it. He had confronted Shaw. He had refused to stay silent, and Shaw had silenced him. Jenna's hands shook as she read the last line her father wrote. "If you're reading this, Jenna, I hope you're brave enough to finish what I couldn't." Her throat closed. Arthur's voice trembled. "He trusted you." Jenna wiped her eyes, furious that tears were falling. "I won't let him down." But before Arthur could speak, the basement door rattled. Once. Then again. A slow, deliberate turn of the handle. Arthur's blood turned to ice. "They found us," he whispered. Jenna stood, drawing her weapon. Footsteps thudded outside, heavy, measured, confident. Voices murmured. Jenna flicked the safety off. "Stay behind me." Arthur's breath hitched. The door handle turned a third time. This time, It unlocked. The metal handle clicked once, twice. Then the basement door swung inward with a slow, predatory ease that made every nerve in Jenna's body ignite. Her weapon was raised before the first shadow even touched the doorway. Arthur froze behind her, breath locked in his throat. The narrow staircase leading down into the basement filled with heavy boots, 3 pairs, descending in steady, synchronized steps, not the rushed cadence of regular officers responding to a call. This was calculated, controlled, hunted. A man in plain clothes reached the bottom step first. Tall, broad, a dark jacket and an expression carved from stone. He didn't flinch at the sight of Jenna's drawn gun. Instead, he gave her a familiar, unsettling smile. "Officer Lee," a calm, smooth voice. "You're a hard woman to track down today." Jenna's blood went cold. She knew that voice. Internal Affairs Detective Carl Hennings, one of Shaw's closest men. A ghost inside the department, appearing only when someone was about to lose their badge or their freedom. 2 more men followed him down, each built like they'd been carved from cinder blocks. Their eyes were cold, empty, a different breed from regular beat cops. Shaw's special detail. Arthur trembled. Hennings looked around the room, gaze slow, almost bored. A church. Not the worst place to run to when you know judgment's coming. Jenna kept her stance tight, weapon steady, voice low and controlled. "This is an unauthorized entry. You have no warrant, no jurisdiction here." Hennings smirked. "Oh, Jenna, after everything you've stepped into today, you think we need paperwork?" Behind her, Arthur gave a strangled whisper. "He's going to bury us both." Jenna didn't take her eyes off Hennings. "I'm on duty," she snapped bluntly. "Pointing a weapon at me is a federal offense." Hennings raised both hands lightly, casual as a man hailing a taxi. "You're right, which is why we're not pointing guns, officer." He tilted his head. "You are." The 2 men behind him spread out, deliberate, flanking, blocking the only exit. It wasn't a standoff, it was a cage closing. Hennings stepped forward. "Let's level with each other. The department has concerns about your behavior today. I'm on a civilian assist, completely authorized." "Really? Because you conveniently went off route, turned off your GPS tracker, ignored 2 direct summons from command, and are now hiding in a church basement with a homeless man who assaulted an officer this morning." Arthur stiffened. "That's a lie." "Quiet," Hennings barked without even looking at him. Jenna stepped forward, protective. "Arthur didn't assault anyone." Hennings shrugged. "That's not what the report says." "What report?" "The one that's being filed as we speak." Jenna's jaw clenched. Fabricated charges, weaponized paperwork, a classic Shaw strategy. Hennings continued, voice smooth as poison. "Let's make this simple. The deputy commissioner wants to speak with you, privately. We'll escort you to him." Jenna inhaled slowly, and in that brief breath her father's voice echoed in her memory. "If they ever try to isolate you, don't let them." She steadied her grip. "I'm not going anywhere with you, not without a warrant, not without backup." Hennings sighed dramatically, as if disappointed in a stubborn child. "Oh, Jenna, you're smarter than this. You know what happens next if you resist. Try me." The basement filled with a suffocating tension. Then Hennings' expression shifted, just slightly. Amusement. "You think your gun gives you leverage. It doesn't." His voice dropped to a whisper, edged with steel. "You've already lost." Then he reached into his coat. Arthur gasped, clutching Jenna's arm. But Hennings didn't pull a weapon. He pulled her badge, number 312. Still warm, as if freshly removed from her locker. Jenna's stomach plummeted. "How?" she breathed. "Oh, this?" He held it up by the chain, letting it sway mockingly. "You're relieved of duty, effective 1 hour ago. Internal misconduct, dereliction of protocol,
interference with an active investigation. Arthur felt his knees weaken. Jenna's chest tightened like it was being crushed between two hands. This wasn't fear. It was fury. Deep, shaking fury. Henning stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm giving you a polite chance, Jenna. Come with us quietly, and maybe you'll still have a career to return to. Fight this, and your life ends the way your father's did." Arthur made a broken sound. Jenna snapped. The sight of Hennings holding her badge, her father's badge before it had been handed down, ignited something inside her that burned hotter than fear. She tightened her stance. "If you killed my father," she whispered, voice sharp as a blade, "you're not laying a hand on me." Henning's smile disappeared. His men shifted, ready to pounce. For a split second, everything balanced on a single breath. Then, thunder. A deafening sound shook the basement. The building trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. Everyone froze. Hennings whipped toward the stairs. What was that? Jenna reacted first. "Arthur, move!" She grabbed him and shoved him behind the stack of metal chairs, pulling him down as another explosion-like boom echoed from outside. Screams filtered in through the cracked basement window. People above them were shouting, running, panicked. Henning spun back toward Jenna. "What did you do?" "I should be asking you that. Your men set something off?" "No!" he bellowed. Chaos erupted outside. Sirens, car alarms, shouts from civilians. Then a voice called from the top of the staircase. "Detective! Shots fired across the street. Multiple units responding." Hennings cursed loudly. He looked at Jenna, then at his two men, then at the stairs. Decision made. "Grab the old man. She'll come willingly if we take him." Arthur whimpered. Jenna surged to her feet and fired a warning shot into the ceiling. The blast echoed like thunder. "Back off!" she roared. Hennings froze in shock, no longer amused. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." "No," Jenna said fiercely, eyes blazing. "You made yours the moment you touched my father's badge." The chaos outside grew louder, driving Henning's men into restless panic. "We'll be back," Henning snarled. "You can't hide forever." And he stormed up the stairs, his men following fast, slamming the basement door behind them. As their footsteps faded, Jenna's adrenaline crashed all at once. Arthur slumped against the wall, chest heaving. "We're as good as dead," he whispered. Jenna knelt beside him, gripping his shoulders. "No," she said firmly. "They're the ones running scared now." He stared at her confused. Jenna lifted her father's torn report from the table. "We have truth." Then she tucked it into her jacket. "And now we get justice." Outside, sirens wailed. The city roared with chaos. Inside the basement, Jenna Lee, ex-officer, daughter of a murdered cop, made the quietest, deadliest vow of her life. Shaw would fall.
No matter what it cost.
The church basement felt too small, too tight, too filled with the memory of Hennings's smile and the echo of boots descending the stairs. The ceiling dust had barely settled, the ringing from her warning shot still fading, when Jenna pushed herself to her feet and went into motion. There was no time to breathe, no time to doubt. Shaw had just declared open war on her, and the only reason she and Arthur weren't already in cuffs or dead was because something outside had drawn Hennings away. She had no illusions that it would slow him for long. Arthur wheezed, clutching his chest. Fear had aged him 10 years in the last 10 minutes. "We need to run," he whispered. "They're coming back. You know they are." Jenna checked her weapon, reloaded with smooth, practiced motions. "We won't be here when they do," she said. Arthur's eyes filled with desperation. "Where do we go? Where can we hide from men like that?" "Not hide." She slung her jacket over her shoulders. "Move. Hunt. Hit first." Arthur blinked at her as if she'd just spoken a foreign language. She softened slightly. "I know you're scared. I am too.
but panic gets us caught, and caught gets us buried. She offered her hand. Come on. One step at a time. He took it, though his grip trembled. Jenna guided him across the basement and up the stairs. She cracked the door open, checking for movement, listening for the telltale click of radios, the whisper of tactical boots. Nothing. But silence didn't reassure her. Silence was where predators thrived. She pushed open the door and stepped into the hallway. The air was thick with smoke from whatever explosion or gunfire had rattled the building earlier. The church's stained glass windows painted fractured colors across the floor, the shards of red and blue dancing with chaotic sirens from the street outside. Father Matthews was nowhere in sight. Her pulse kicked. Had they taken him? She scanned quickly. No signs of struggle. Chairs undisturbed, hymnals stacked neatly. The old priest must have evacuated with the others when the emergency erupted. Good. One less innocent for Shaw to use as leverage. She helped Arthur toward the side exit, keeping low and fast. As they reached the heavy wood door, Jenna paused and peered through the narrow window. Outside, the street was a storm. Police cars everywhere, flashing lights painting the world in frantic red and blue. Civilians were being ushered behind barricades across the street. Fire trucks roared in from the left, and officers, real officers, not Shaw's enforcers, were darting across the intersection, shouting orders. A city block away, smoke curled upward from a sedan with its front end crushed like a soda can. Not a bomb then. A collision. A distraction. Random or deliberate, she wasn't sure, but it had bought her a sliver of time. She nudged Arthur. Stay close. Don't speak. Don't look at anyone. We cut left. Through the alleyway. He nodded shakily. She slipped them out the door and into the chaos. For 20 seconds, the world was nothing but noise, shouts, sirens, smoke, confusion. But no one looked at them. Everyone's attention was glued to the smoking vehicle and the injured pedestrian lying on a stretcher. They slid past the commotion and into the alleyway. Between the church and an apartment building, Arthur sagged against the wall. I can't do this, he gasped. Yes, you can, Jenna said. You've survived worse than this. I've survived by hiding, by being invisible. I'm not a fighter. You don't have to be. Jenna looked him square in the eyes. You just have to stay alive long enough for me to finish this. His throat bobbed. What if you don't? I will. There was no room for doubt, even if she felt it clawing at her ribs. Arthur swallowed hard. Where to now? Jenna glanced down the alley, her mind already 3 steps ahead. Shaw's men would sweep the church within minutes, then the block, then the surrounding streets. Traffic cams would be analyzed, witnesses questioned, patterns tracked. And Jenna Lee, badge stripped, declared rogue, would be target number 1. She needed a safe place they wouldn't check, allies Shaw couldn't manipulate, and leverage stronger than Hennings's lies, and she needed them fast. Her thoughts went to one name, Detective Maria Alvarez, her father's old partner. Unshakable, honest, hated Shaw's guts enough to hide it, barely. If anyone would believe her, it was Maria. And Maria still had access to the digital archives, records Shaw thought he'd erased completely. We're going to the South Precinct, Jenna said. Arthur choked. The police station? They'll kill us both the second we walk through the doors. We're not going inside, Jenna assured him. We're going to Maria. She works the late shift. But she'll be surrounded by other officers. Good officers, Jenna said. Ones who follow procedure. Arthur's fear was palpable, but he nodded. Jenna led him through the maze of back streets. They moved fast, cutting through shadows, avoiding major roads. Every sound, a car door slamming, a radio squawk, a distant shout, set Jenna's nerves on edge. After several blocks, Jenna paused at a corner, checked sightlines, and then darted across.
Arthur struggled to keep up, but didn't complain. They reached a small industrial yard behind a shuttered dry cleaning shop. Jenna ducked them behind a dumpster and grabbed her phone. Still off. Still untraceable. She powered it on for less than 5 seconds, just long enough to send a single text. Jenna. Need to meet. Urgent. Life or death. Back lot behind South Precinct. Come alone. 10 minutes. She killed the phone again. Arthur was sweating. What if she doesn't come? She will. She's one person. Shaw commands the entire department. Jenna turned to him, voice steady. Sometimes one honest person is all it takes. They moved again. 5 blocks later, the looming concrete structure of the South Precinct came into view, its lights bright against the darkening sky. Jenna kept them behind parked cars until they reached the narrow alley behind the station. Garbage cans, a chain-link fence, a flickering security light. It wasn't much, but it offered cover. Arthur crouched low. I don't like this. Too exposed. It's temporary, Jenna said. Minutes ticked by. Her heart hammered with each one. She was just starting to fear the worst when... Footsteps. Not heavy boots. Not tactical pacing. Measured, fast, familiar. Maria Alvarez rounded the corner, worry etched into her face. Short, strong, dark hair pulled into a tight bun, a notebook in one hand, badge on her belt. Jenna stepped out from behind the dumpster. Maria exhaled in...
Jenna, thank God! What the hell is happening? They're saying you went rogue, that you assaulted an officer, that you're armed and dangerous. They're lying, Jenna cut in. Maria stopped dead, staring into her eyes. She saw it. The truth. Tell me everything, Maria said. Jenna did. Fast. Precise. No details spared. Arthur's assault, Shaw at the crosswalk, the hidden threat, the torn report about her father, the basement standoff, Hennings, the badge confiscation. Maria's jaw had gone hard as concrete by the end. They framed you, she muttered, and they're doing it fast. They're doing worse, Jenna said. Shaw killed my father, and he's about to hide the evidence forever. Maria looked between Jenna and Arthur. Then we don't go inside, she said. We go underneath. Jenna blinked. Underneath? Maria nodded grimly. There's something your father left behind, something Shaw never found. If we can get to it first, you'll have enough proof to take down the entire department. Jenna's breath caught. Arthur stared. Maria stepped closer, voice low. But Shaw's already hunting you, and once he realizes you're alive... She looked over her shoulder. The whole city will become his net. Then, she met Jenna's gaze directly. If you want the truth, you'll have to walk into the one place Shaw thinks you'd never dare go. Jenna swallowed. Where? Maria answered without hesitation. Your father's old house. Jenna felt her blood freeze. The house Shaw had declared a suicide scene. The house boarded up and left untouched. The house she hadn't set foot in since the night she lost him. Arthur whispered, They'll be waiting. Maria nodded. Oh, they will. Which means we have one chance. She locked eyes with Jenna. We hunt them before they hunt you. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Jenna felt something bloom in her chest. Not fear, not fury. Purpose. The wind cut like glass as Jenna stood outside the dark, abandoned house that once belonged to her father. Moonlight spilled across the sagging porch, turning the peeling paint into pale strips of silver. The same police tape that had been strung there the night he died fluttered listlessly, brittle and sun-bleached. It looked like a place time itself had refused to touch. Maria parked a block away to avoid detection. Now she crouched beside Jenna at the edge of the yard, scanning the street with careful, seasoned eyes. Arthur stood behind them, hands shaking, breath fogging the cold night air. Jenna's pulse drummed. She had avoided this house for 3 years. She wasn't sure whether she had stayed away because it hurt too much, or because a part of her feared she'd never leave if she stepped inside again. But now, she had no choice. "Still quiet," Maria whispered. "If Shaw posted men, they're deeper in, not here." Jenna didn't answer. She stared at the house like it might swallow her whole. Maria placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" "No," Jenna said honestly. "But I'm ready." Maria nodded once. "Then let's move." Jenna led the way. As they crossed the yard, Arthur whispered, "Are you sure this is wise? Shaw isn't a man to leave loose ends." "That's exactly why we're here," Jenna said. "To stop being his loose ends." The porch creaked under their weight. The door was still boarded shut, hammered hurriedly the night the investigation concluded. Jenna's stomach twisted. Shaw had been here. He had stood in this exact doorway, ordering officers to get out, sealing the truth inside like poison. Jenna's hands curled into fists. Not tonight. Maria handed her a small crowbar from her belt. "Your house, your choice." Jenna wedged the metal between the boards. She didn't force anything. She pushed slow and deliberate, the wood groaning as if waking from a cold sleep. When the last board gave, the front door drifted inward on tired hinges. Cold air rolled out. Silence pressed in. Jenna stepped inside. The house smelled like dust, old paper, and forgotten days. Her father's coat still hung on the hook by the door. The living room sat frozen in time. TV remote on the table, open book on the armchair, coffee mug with a faint ring dried at the bottom. Her throat tightened. This wasn't a crime scene. It was a mausoleum. Maria swept the room with her flashlight, careful not to disturb anything. "Shaw didn't search this place thoroughly," she muttered. "He thought he didn't need to. Why bother looking for evidence no one would ever question?" Jenna moved deeper into the house, her memories echoing with every step. Her father laughing at the kitchen table. Her father falling asleep in front of late-night talk shows. Her father hugging her so tight she believed he was unbreakable. She swallowed the ache and focused on Maria's instructions. "Your father hid something," Maria had said. "Something he was working on before he died. Something Shaw never found, or else he never would have let this place stand." Jenna began in the kitchen. Maria checked the hallway. Arthur kept watch from the living room, though his hands shook badly enough that he clung to the armchair like a lifeline. Jenna searched cabinets, drawers, the space under the sink. Nothing. Same with the cookie tins her father always repurposed for storing nails, screws, receipts. Still full of mundane clutter, no secrets tucked beneath. After 20 tense minutes, Maria rejoined her. "Nothing in the bedroom. No files, no journals, no drives. This place is untouched, too untouched." Jenna felt a spark behind that observation. "Shaw didn't search because he didn't think he had to, because he didn't think my father left anything behind. But he did," Maria said. "He told me. The night before he died, he said, 'If anything happens to me, the truth won't die with me.'" Jenna's breath hitched. "He said that to you?" Maria hesitated, guilt flickering across her face. "I thought he was being dramatic. I told him to get some sleep. God, Jenna, I should have known." Jenna shook her head hard. "This isn't your fault. Shaw fooled everyone." Maria nodded, though her eyes were wet. "If I may, some men hide things in the most unexpected places." Arthur pointed a trembling finger toward the hallway. "Does the house have an attic?" Maria and Jenna exchanged a look. The attic. Of course. Every cop joked that attics and basements held all the answers.
Sometimes the jokes were true. Jenna grabbed her father's old flashlight from the kitchen drawer and hurried to the hallway. The attic door was in the ceiling, a square panel with a string dangling down. She pulled it. The ladder unfolded and dust showered the floor. Her heart pounded as she climbed. Maria followed. Arthur stayed below, guarding the door with the bravery of a man twice his size. The attic was dark and heavy with the scent of forgotten summers. Old Christmas decorations sat in boxes. An old bike leaned against the far wall. Several metal filing cabinets were pushed into the shadows. Jenna's breath caught. There, a large trunk, one she hadn't seen since childhood, sat in the center, padlocked with a thick layer of dust coating it. Her father's lockbox. Her father's hiding place. Maria knelt beside it and ran her fingers along the surface. If the truth survived, it's in here. Jenna hesitated, not because she feared what was inside, but because she feared how far Shaw would go to stop her from opening it. Still, she lifted the trunk by its rested handles and tugged. Locked. Maria stepped back and reached into her boot, pulling out a thin metal tool. "You didn't get this from me." Jenna arched an eyebrow. "Old habits," Maria explained. One twist, one click, the lock snapped. Jenna took a breath that felt sharp in her chest and lifted the lid. Inside, files lay stacked nightly in rows, exactly the way my father would have kept them. Markers labeled each bundle. Internal affairs leads, Shaw investigations, missing evidence logs, officer misconduct unreported, Morton J. personal notes. But what froze my blood was the small black notebook on top, wrapped in a leather cover I recognized instantly. My father's journal. My fingers hovered over it, like I was touching a ghost. Maria whispered, "Jenna, this is the motherlode. This is the end of Shaw." Jenna opened the journal. Pages of neat handwriting stared back, my father's voice captured in ink. "Shaw is worse than corrupt. He is dangerous. He has help inside the department. I'm close to exposing him. Too close. If anything happens to me, it was not my doing. Protect Jenna. Find the evidence. Don't trust internal affairs." Jenna's vision blurred. He knew Shaw was coming. He knew he would be silenced, and he still fought to the end. Her hands trembled as she flipped through more pages. Dates, names, payments, locations, a full network of officers Shaw controlled. Proof Shaw had framed men, stolen evidence, even orchestrated 2 officer deaths to climb the ranks. It was everything. But suddenly, a floorboard creaked. Not in the attic. Below. Arthur gasped. Maria's eyes snapped up. Jenna froze. Another creak. Then, "Jenna?" Arthur whispered from downstairs, terror tightening his voice. "Someone's inside." Maria grabbed Jenna's arm. "We have to move. Now." They slammed the trunk shut and lifted it together. The attic ladder trembled as they descended. Arthur pointed toward the front of the house, face white as chalk. "He's here." "Who?" A deep, smooth voice answered from the shadows of the living room. "Me." Shaw stepped into view, gun in hand, expression calm as a man browsing a grocery aisle. "You should have stayed buried, Jenna. But since you didn't, I'll finish what I started." He raised the gun. Jenna didn't think, she reacted. "Go!" she screamed. Maria fired first. Jenna dove sideways. Arthur ducked behind the couch. Gunshots tore through the stale air. The trunk crashed to the floor, papers spilling everywhere as Jenna crawled across shattered glass and broken memories. Adrenaline thundered through her body. Shaw reloaded, his face twisted with fury. "This ends tonight, Jenna." "No," she shouted back. "It ends with you." Maria kicked open the back door.
Run! Jenna grabbed Arthur and the journal, her father's last legacy, and sprinted through the doorway as bullets ripped through the walls. They stumbled into the yard and disappeared into the night, hearts pounding, lungs screaming. Behind them, Shaw's voice rang out into the darkness. "I will find you!" Jenna didn't look back.
She tightened her grip on the journal. It was no longer just evidence. It was her father's final message. And now the hunt had truly begun.